Okay, folks. So, I've been really tired this day. This Sunday, and kind of like just dragged myself out here. Decided to record this because reasons. Because why not? But I wanted to basically, also, other than just it being something to do, I also wanted to essentially mark the fact that it's been 3 weeks. This is day 21, and so I've gone through 3 weeks of Nofap. I also weighed myself today, which it's kind of interesting because I decided to make today like my sort of cheat day for the week, starting off, and then I'm just gonna go essentially almost like hardcore into the diet, slow carbs. So like starting tomorrow is gonna just be like the one of my like regular slow carb meals and that sort of thing. But weighed myself today, and the funny thing is I'd already like had my initial like sort of hey, this is cheat day meal. But I weighed myself, and I apparently have lost like 4.2 pounds, at least compared to my measurement from last Sunday. And yeah, that was pretty cool. If I can keep up that kind of weight loss, I could basically be at or back to where I was when I sort of reached my peak in terms of like weight loss last time. Get back to my PR. Wanting to get back into like the 170s and then go from there, because let me see, eventually I may do a series, as I've talked about in the past, but I weighed myself last week, and that was like 214.2, and now I'm down to 210.0, so like just right on the line. But I would need to get back down to like 189 to be in the healthy BMI range, like at the upper end of it. And then I also ultimately, like, if I were to get to my ideal weight, we'd be talking about 160 or 165 pounds. That would be my ideal, not only because like presumably how I would look, but it would give me enough range. We're talking 15, more like more like 20, more like 25 to 30 pounds, range to essentially be able to go up to and still be in the healthy BMI range. If I did decide that I wanted to go, back and sort of do, bulking, essentially, just, I could then focus on putting on a bunch of muscle or so and work on that. And I would have that 25 to 30 pound range, which would give me enough space to work with, so I wouldn't have to be worrying about tipping over into the overweight range. And I have noticed a bit of like sort of the muscle pain has kind of started to go away a bit. It's decreased. I wonder if I was kind of like at that sort of like line where I was passing into that sort of range where I would start to get those sorts of symptoms, and if I kept on going and putting on more weight, I'd eventually end up with an out and out straight up hernia or some other sort of health issue. And maybe if I continue to be dropping the pounds, I'll see that stuff go away. I remember last time I did that, interestingly enough, I did start to kind of just feel in general better, like my health I didn't feel like as tired, as fatigued. I didn't have a whole ton of like health issues, other than the ones that were already kind of there. The only thing that I did deal with for a time was some tension headaches, but a lot of that had to do with just like I was working extra hours all the time. I was up and 12-hour shifts and all that kind of stuff that comes along with that. So I think that was more caused by that, but I'm hoping if I continue on this path and I start to really drop in the weight, that maybe maybe what, that stuff will go away. Maybe the real issue has been just sort of, at least part of it has been just the weight gain that I went through, combined with perhaps, increased like blood sugar levels and stuff of that nature that, has led to sort of a situation where maybe certain things are out of balance, and as a result, maybe there's, muscle strain or the kind of stuff that would eventually, lead to, potentially like an inguinal hernia or an umbilical hernia or something of that nature. But yeah, I'm making some progress on that. I'm really trying to stick to it strictly. I think one thing that I've also taken a little bit differently this time, and I'm trying to stick with it, is like where exactly I'm getting my meals from, because in the past there was this one like taqueria where I'd go to, and I go to that place like on my days off from work, because I think like for whatever reason the way things are when I'm at work versus how it is when I'm at home, I don't have this sort of same schedule or same routine, such that it's like when I'm here, I can have that one big meal, I can split that into some smaller meals and then consume that, throughout the day. Whereas at work, it's kind of like, okay, I'll try to get through, 3, 4, even 5 hours of work, and then I'll go take a break, they have like a little like bag of, let's say, cashews or, salted peanuts or almonds or so, with a Red Bull or a Coke Zero or something of that nature. Maybe just some water, some sparkling water or so. And, work for a little bit longer, after the break, and then go take my half an hour lunch. And I'll have this burrito bowl. I think the kind of meat that actually works the best for me right now is like the carne asada. For some reason, like the way they flavor it at the place that I get at, the different spices or whatever, it's like it tastes way better. And of course, I make sure like there's no rice, no sour cream, no cheese. So it's like beans, lettuce, the salsa's there, so that's like tomatoes. What else? Guacamole, and then the meat. And I think it's kind of like the size of the meal, the timing of it, when I have it, etc. Especially combined with also some of the intermittent fasting I've been doing, because I'll have like a cup of coffee in the morning with some creamer. I could probably optimize it, more by going with like a, zero sugar creamer. Eventually I'll get around to going to the grocery store and getting some of that, but I'll have that coffee in the morning, big old cup of coffee. That gets me fired up. I head into work. I work for those few hours where I'm not consuming anything. Once I'm done with the coffee, it's like that's my fast, if you will. And then I'll go and break that by having the cashews or the salted peanuts with some sort of caffeinated drink. And they have zero sugar Red Bull as well, so I can go with that. That's very minimal in terms of any sorts of carbs, so it's like keeps me within that range. But so I've been doing that, and then maybe I'll go to the other place when I'm off from work, because it's a larger meal. I can just break that down over the the course of the day. But hopefully, if I keep that up, I'll be making progress in that field, and I can hopefully see continuous sort of progression of a lot of that, those telltale signs of muscle pain going away. I did somehow pull a back muscle the other day. I don't know what it was, or actually I think it was during the night, because I started feeling it at work, but I don't know where a lot of this stuff comes from. Sometimes I think it's almost like maybe I was having some dream and I moved very suddenly in the dream, and since I haven't really been consistently like doing, I haven't been doing workouts, or I haven't been doing a full body workout sort of a routine. So maybe like my muscles way too tense and I haven't like worked it out and strengthened it. But for some odd reason, like that happened. Might have had a dream or some sort of I don't know, maybe a nightmare or something, and I think I was like fighting something in my dream, or I was running from it, or something. But yeah, I'm trying to like think all these reasons, like how could I have pulled a back muscle when I wasn't doing anything, like extreme exertion, that sort of a deal, kind of like how with a lot of these other things, muscle pain and such that I've gotten in general, like abdominal muscle pain and such, like if I lived on a farm in the Midwest, especially like 50, 60, 70 years ago, and I was getting some of those issues, at my age, like it would kind of make sense, because it's like, okay, you work on a farm, you live on a farm, like you probably, lifting all these heavy things and, operating heavy equipment and carrying, bales of hay and bushels of wheat and so on and so forth, you might end up getting injured along the way, doing sort of your work and that sort of thing. And, that would kind of make sense. But if you're just some sort of modern day, contemporary individual, and you don't really do the kind of work that has, you could say, quote unquote, extreme exertion involved, then it's sort of like you can't, I don't think you can really like sort of brush it off as much. I mean, you should still look into and get some sort of medical care, even if you're living on one of those, working on the farm sort of situations. But I think it's even more of a sign of like, some sort of health issue that's occurring and needs to be somehow dealt with, even if it's a matter of, okay, you need to lose some weight, because I can't see any other cause other than just like weight gain and unhealthy living, especially in terms of like stress levels. And perhaps it's some of the stuff from college coming back and finally like sort of like here's where this is going to go in 5 years if you don't deal with this sort of thing. It's like surfacing now. Could also be the influence of PMO. I definitely I'm definitely of the mindset that I'm going in sort of, again, a stream of consciousness sort of a sense, stuff rolling off my mind, because I'm making this vlog, sort of an update. Okay, what's on my mind, what I've been working on, that sort of thing. But like if you want to talk about like lower back pain, I mean, it would be an awkward conversation to have with a doctor or medical professional, but let's be honest, like PMO, come on, that's got to be a factor in why you might have lower back pain, which is what I've had. Why you might have muscle pain in your groin region, your lower abdomen. Why you might have muscle pain in like your legs or so. I've had stuff like that. I've had issues almost like with like a little bit of like perhaps circulatory problems or stuff of that nature. Like one of the factors I definitely have to say would be PMO. And I have seen when I've gone out long long periods of abstaining from that, especially if I've replaced certain things with let's say physical exercise, and getting plenty of sleep and so on and so forth. Like I have seen that that stuff has abated, it's decreased. So yeah, that's kind of like what I'm sort of facing right now. What else? Try not to spend too much time daydreaming, about sort of the future I'm working towards, because I'm paying down bills and I'm making all this progress, and obviously I have a concern about like stuff that could come up and lead to me not being able to actually like act on my, the results of my hard work. But and what else I wanted to comment on? What was it? I think one thing I wanted to sort of comment on in this video, and it's sort of like me responding to a comment. I think it was I think Dark Magician left. Yeah, he left this comment where he said something about like religion is set in stone. I think the problem, this is maybe it'll be a point of disagreement, but that's fine. I don't want people to all think like me. I don't want them to all agree with me. I'm not looking to start a cult or or have some sort of followership where they got the Book of Ascesis Catharsis and the things he said, and as he saith in this book, so what must we do or believe. But I think the problem for me really with so much of what I see in religion, at least contemporary religion, I mean, my experience with it has been that it's not set in stone. This is something that Rollo has pointed out. He's talked about this. He's written about it. He actually has the fourth Rational Male book out there. I am planning on getting it and reading it because it's sort of like that next level thing where it's like the red pill in religion. And he kind of talks about how a lot of these religions will change over time. You'll have sort of a culture change that will occur, and then that leads to eventually a doctrinal, however you want to pronounce it, change. And he was talking more in the light of like the feminine imperative and the gynocentric social order and all that term, those terms and terminology. And he used the example like religious music, like at least in the contemporary sense of like rock music being adopted into a lot of these religious communities, where it's like at first it was considered practically sinful to listen to that music, and definitely sinful or at least questionable to be making it, sinful or questionable to listen to that kind of music, secular music, making it, that sort of thing. And what the heck was that? I'm sorry that this is. I sometimes feel like I'm living in a bit of a war zone. It was pretty random. Somebody just set off some fireworks, a firecracker or something over there. Oh, that was weird. If you guys could see that, you'd understand like why, I'm like kind of in the middle of that thought that I would suddenly be like, jump like that and lose my train of thought. But see if I can get. I'm hoping nothing goes off again. But if I can get back on track, I was using the example of music, which actually Rollo was covering. He said something along the lines of like how originally that stuff was considered like kind of like taboo or rejected, or it just wasn't like, it wasn't accepted. Let's just say, I'm not necessarily saying people had active opposition to it. Some cultures, some religions, they have sort of that attitude of like it's bad, it's evil, and they're still there, and they will condemn it left and right. But even punish people for making music, listening to music, that sort of thing. But he was talking more about like in the Western world or in America or those sort of things. But back in the day, it was at the very least controversial. And then gradually over time it became more and more accepted, more and more popular. The religious groups or religious leadership saw the potential for using that as a vehicle to get the message out to the younger folks, that sort of thing. Oh, they're listening to us, so let's go make our version of it. And then you end up with like religious rock music or whatever form the music is, whatever genre it fits into. And I think I don't know if there were in America or in the West, if there were like religious leaders who like looked at music originally and were like, this is a doctrinal issue, this is forbidden, this is sinful, but eventually became accepted in the mainstream of that. And by the time I came around, like there was definitely all that stuff there, and people would have concerts and whatnot. And similar things have happened in terms of like intergender dynamics, where certain things, if you were to go back 50 or 60 years ago, it wasn't just like that it was considered socially taboo. It was like religiously speaking, like sinful or wrong or it was like, it was like the devil's influence or something like that, and it was seen as like a manifestation of that. And you look at it nowadays, and it's like these religions who, they claim to have, this sort of like, what's the word I'm looking for, ahistorical or atemporal sort of like essence and truth and authority and so on. They've all changed in that sort of sense, and the religious community that I was a part of, I mean, they're the ones who are oftentimes referred to in the Red Pillar Manosphere as they're the last ones who have any sort of a stand being made against that sort of stuff. They're the last bastion of, sort of any resistance to that. And it's like, I'm here to tell you, sorry, that's not the case anymore. May have been 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and it's something that I've had to get across to, like, my parents, for instance, and other people. It's like, this ain't like it used to be. Things have changed significantly, and here's this really going on. It's kind of like the concept of dating. Like, if you were to go back like a generation or two, in some of these communities, like dating, just the idea of like, why you have a guy and a girl like alone together like that? Like, what are they up to? Are they married? Are they husband and wife? Like, no, they're not. Like, well, then why are they together? Like, what are they up to? They must be up to something. They must be up to no good. That sort of thing. Nowadays, it's like they've gotten to the point of like, okay, well, we're gonna make this religiously sanctioned because we're gonna like set these certain rules and blah blah blah. And it's just like, they end up over time changing these sorts of things, and religion is really not set in stone. A lot of what religion really is like, it's sort of like the manifestation of the trends that are going on in that society that sort of time. It's almost like a barometer or a thermometer, determining like, or that you can use to determine what is really going on in the society, what's considered acceptable or not acceptable, or what's considered cool or what have you. They'll sort of like mimic the secular culture. It's kind of like when people go off about politics and that sort of stuff. It's like a lot of what you hear about or see in politics is merely the apparent manifestation of some cultural change that started 40 or 50 years ago and gradually became more and more acceptable. And then it was kind of like, okay, now we're going to codify it because we've all agreed that it's culturally acceptable, so why don't we put it into the laws and we can set it in stone right like that. And you could probably go back further and say, oh, there's some economic change that took place that then led to the cultural change, which then led to the political change. And the folks who want to like go on ranting about the politics or political changes or laws or what have you, it's like, not only is a lot of times these people who were involved in the cultural changes which led to those political changes, but it's kind of like, even if they weren't, like, why weren't they doing something about it in all those years or decades ago? So yeah, that's kind of like my take on that. Maybe I'm like, maybe I'm more so clarifying why I said what I said in that video, why I don't really hang on to any particular religious community at this point, or any other are there really any other community? I mean, it's just like, they are sort of like self-serving organisms in a sense. Like they talk about in the occult about egregores and sort of the thought form of a group. It's almost kind of like that. They are like self-serving organisms, and this is why I consider it so dangerous for anybody to really go out and commit to any group or get involved in any sort of movement or organization or whatever the case may be, because it's like, you are just a pawn. It is all a chess game, and you're a pawn, and they move you from spot to spot, and once you've served your purpose, you're knocked out and you go to the side. You're basically you're dead at that point. You could literally have died as a result. But even if it's not literal, figuratively, like your time in the game is over, and you know you played your little role that they wanted you to play, and it's a very little role, and you get forgotten, and you've been eliminated. So you gotta like think for yourself, walk your own path, that sort of thing, and don't get absorbed into that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, and discussing this sort of stuff, like I think one other one other observation that I wanted to sort of make was like sort of it's kind of interesting how, like, as I've gone on with this whole Nofap, deal, like I see all these like metaphors and analogies where it's like Nofap is Nofap, PMO is PMO, and etc. But it's like these analogies between Nofap, between PMO, between and so many other subjects, But this is one reason why, like, I'll agree with like I think I'm trying to remember his exact words, but it's something about like, okay, like yeah, be aware of like the outside world, be aware of current affairs, but also understand that a lot of it is like garbage that's there to distract you, and you gotta throw in some entertainment and some fun things to watch here and there. But it's one of the reasons why, like, sometimes I do feel like I have to sort of unplug from all that, because so much of what you have out there is like it's sort of like the equivalent of pornography in a sense, because there's definitely, I mean, like I've never actually had sex. I've had this whole like waiting until marriage, wanting to find the virgin bride and marry her, and etc. etc. And maybe if I recover from a lot of the damage I've gone through, maybe I can go and pursue that again and eventually attain that. Maybe we'll see. But I would think, speaking from my own experience as well as hearing from other folks who've obviously actually had sex, I would think that there's a world of difference between fapping to pornography on the one hand versus actually having sex on the other, and it's not just in the ways that you would like think that it would, obviously, like duh, it's like different, what do you think, obviously, but I mean really. And it's sort of the same thing with when folks are consuming like basically what you might call rage porn, about politics or religion or culture or whatever. It's like the equivalent to that. And you deal with those folks enough, you kind of realize it's almost like folks who are addicted to pornography. It's like, and I'm not talking about folks who are trying to break free of it, who are on Nofap, who are making progress, who are working towards that, trying to get away from trying to get back to reality and actually having real relationships and presumably eventually real sex with another person, presumably, most of us being dudes and etc. etc. Most of us therefore being interested in members of the opposite sex and therefore wanting to be with a woman and so on. Therefore pursuing actual sex with an actual woman who actually wants you and so on, and whom you want. It's sort of the same thing there. It's like, okay, you have the folks who are addicted to fapping to pornography and they're not aware of it, they're not even trying to break free of it. It's like, do they really want sex, or are they just after that high, that dopamine rush? Same thing with folks who are, heavily into rage porn, basically, political rage porn or cultural rage porn, whatever. It's that kind of, red meat content where they're just wanting to essentially have an emotional reaction. And maybe their lives really are truly miserable, and they're, so deep into that, they never think they'll be able to get out of that. So it's like that's the only thing that causes them to have that ecstasis where they get out of that state. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But there comes a point where I can't really communicate with folks like that, interact with them. And I also have to watch that I don't get into that sort of state where I'm, consuming all this essentially rage bait, rage porn, red meat type, content where it's just like, oh, did you hear what this politician just, wants to push for or vote for, or did you hear about what this celebrity just said or did, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you know, maybe you truly do not care for that politician or more so for their policies. Maybe you truly don't care for that celebrity or the content they make or whatever, but like, like it's been said, like what good does it do for you? It's garbage and you get it and you don't like it. It's like, okay, I don't like it. I get it. Why do I want to wallow in and drown in how much I don't like it, how much it makes me so angry or sad or whatever, essentially it's kind of like one should try to, and you can apply this to Nofap, one should try and get away from, useless content, useless information, random facts for you to learn today, or, some rage bait garbage or pornography itself, whatever, and start really trying to consume things that actually like are useful to you, like if you're really big on programming, you want to become an engineer, software engineer in particular, like consuming content on programming, Python, C, C++, C#, Java, R, SQL, etc. Like that'll be time far better spent, or you think about like learning about biology, chemistry, physics, mathematics, or something more hands-on, maybe learning how to do some basic repairs on a car, learning how to fix your plumbing in your house, learning how to fix a dishwasher or a clothes washer, or like, like a laundry machine, or like a, clothes dryer, something like that, learning how to work on that sort of stuff, or learning how to, cook a tasty meal. I mean, you think about like, I think it's Robert Heinlein had a quote where he talked about like, specialization is for insects, a human being should know how to do, and he gives this laundry list of things. It's like, if you were to go and spend your time learning that kind of stuff and then acting upon that knowledge, it's like you see your life improve exponentially. And, it's almost like, I talked about in the past how like attention is like a currency, and, others have said it better than me, but, it's like you have all these groups and individuals out there who like they want your attention because they understand how valuable that is. And whether it's wasting it on pornography, wasting it on rage bait, red meat, sort of material, and, God forbid, like actually acting on that stuff, you're wasting your attention, you're wasting your time, you're wasting that greatest currency that you only get so much of. You're not being effective with it. And, I think that's a lot of like the danger of, probably one of the greatest like dangers to a lot of us in the world who are living in a place where maybe there isn't like, literal civil war or violence or economic collapse. At least not like that's like not literally, happening. At least in the immediate sense, And of course, in the longer term sense, if you are truly distracted, not, expanding your skill set, learning new things, all that are actually useful, if those things do actually happen, like you're going to be left out to, left out in the open, caught out in the open, and exposed to the effects of that kind of stuff. So, anyways, make good use of your time would be, one of my things. Like I'm picking my way through this R programming course for data science and machine learning, and hoping I can get to the project section soon enough, and then just like, really work on that and get those things done, and then add them to my GitHub account. And I need to use the next few days to just sort of spiffy up my resume, because there may still be some sort of positions, engineering type stuff that I can apply to, and whether at my current place of employment or at another company that I want to apply for. And at the very least, I can at least figure out what it is they actually want. Outside of that laundry list they give in job description, what they really want from someone who they would like to employ in that position. Because the current term that I have is a 6-month with possibility of being turned into a full-time employee, and there's really no guarantee it's going to go full-time. And besides, it's basically like my old job, and they might be moving production for what I'm doing. They might be moving that out of state, because they're expanding their state, and they're basically thinking of turning the new facility they have into their main manufacturing area. At least from what I've heard. I mean, they could go a completely different direction. I really can't tell what's up in the future, but I've been hearing rumors about that. And as such, it's kind of you would have to sort of move into some other department where they're going to be keeping those folks here where I'm at, or else getting in with some other company, assuming they don't convert you to full-time, blah blah blah, that sort of thing. So I've got to be ready for that, and that's why I have to make best use of my time. So anywho, I'm gonna try and get back to it. I might just go to bed. I'm not really sure, but I'm kind of still feeling a bit of the effects of adjusting to the whole schedule and being a bit tired and all that. So, and since I didn't get to call my grandma today, hopefully if I can call at the right time, because I called her today, but the line was busy. Maybe I can plan to call her tomorrow and talk to her. I try to call at least once a week, for obvious reasons. But anyways, that's it for me and my my thoughts for now, and etc. So anyways, thanks for watching. Thanks for the likes, the comments, the subscriptions, the spiel. And I will see you folks around. Bye-bye.